In this video, I want to share my thoughts on rejection, having now done over 10,000 cold approaches. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian, and I help dateable men remove their social blocks so they can stop living like closet heterosexuals. And what I found to be true with all of the successful guys who I've worked with is within every single guy, there is this universal fear of not receiving love from the feminine. And this might be a position that you're in right now. You know that you don't want to outsource the future of your bloodline to an algorithm. You might be sick of going to noisy nightclubs. Maybe the women in your social circle are not the women who you want. So you discover this thing called daytime cold approach, which is just starting conversations with women. That's all it is. And the problem a lot of guys experience is they have this fear of being rejected. So you might have this fear right now of, what if I walk over to a woman and I don't receive love? What if I don't get a positive reference experience? You might not be scared of approaching. You might be scared of being seen to be approaching. So you might have this fear of public embarrassment. You might worry too much about what other people think of you. And it's holding you back. It's keeping you average. It's preventing you from living the dating life you know you're capable of living. Meanwhile, you probably see guys every single day with hotter women than the women you're getting. And it pisses you off to know, because these guys are nowhere near your level. They're no richer, smarter, better looking than you. And you're stood there thinking, what's going wrong? Why do I have so much resistance? Why do I have these mental blocks? Why do I feel socially repressed? Why do I feel so socially frustrated? Maybe I'm just not that guy. Maybe I'm just not a social dude. Maybe social skills are just something that you're born with, because this is a mentality I had for a long time. So before I got started with daytime cold approach, I was a magician for a decade. So at 13 years old, I had terrible social anxiety. I struggled to even talk to my own family members. If my family came around to visit, I would run upstairs. I didn't want to talk to them. At school, if I got put on the spot to answer questions, I would break out into these sweating fits. I hated the spotlight. I hated attention. For a long time in my life, I hated myself. I felt as though social skills were either something that came natural or you were fucked. My best friend growing up used to be my aunt, and we used to play Call of Duty together after school. It was Modern Warfare 2, Rust. If you know, you know. But I think based around all the guys who I've worked with, every single guy is held back by the belief that approaching women, it's wrong. Oh, it's creepy. What are people gonna think? You might be scared of getting a bad reputation for yourself in your city. You might be scared of getting labeled as this low value pickup guy. So what I wanna do for you in this video is share with you my thoughts on rejection that have allowed me to overcome that approach anxiety, allowed over 200 of my clients to do the same. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why you feel the way that you do, and you'll also understand lesser known insights that will make the idea of rejection carry less emotional weight. So first of all, I think it's important to understand why we actually feel the way that we do. Because whenever I see content online of guys who are teaching guys such as yourself how to overcome rejection, 7 easy ways to no longer care what people think, they always start off with tips, techniques, tactics. But for me, the main part to begin with is truth, is understanding why you feel this way. Because a big portion of it is not you. A big portion of it is primitive programming. So if you can imagine over 220,000 years ago, when we existed in tribes around 150 people, if you were to approach a woman in the caveman days and she was like, "Soz mate, I don't find you attractive," it wouldn't have just meant embarrassment. It would have meant exile. And the fucked up thing was, if you got rejected, it would have meant your DNA wasn't worthy of replication, but all of the tribe would have found out. So this meant loss of resources, loss of shelter, loss of ability to reproduce, end of bloodline. So we've carried this primitive programming into the modern day. But the scary thing is, the modern world that we live amplifies this prehistoric fear. Think about it. When you were in the school system, if you got a question wrong, you were believed to be stupid. Yeah, I remember when I was at school, when I used to have these sweating fits, the reason why these started was because one day at school, I put my hand up to answer a really basic question, and I got the question disastrously wrong. Even the teacher laughed at me. So I learned from a young age, if I was wrong, I was stupid. And this is what I found with so many guys. You know, when people are always like, oh, average guys are lazy. For me, average guys are not average because they're lazy. A lot of guys stay average because they're just scared of getting it wrong. And what I found to be true in my own life when it came to being a magician, learning martial arts in 2024, doing solo skydives, traveling to over 30 different countries, being a lifeguard in the United States, what I've learned is in order to become great at anything, you have to risk not being able to do it. But the scary thing with daytime approach is it feels as though the stakes are so high because we're carrying this primitive programming. Every time you see a beautiful woman who you want to talk to, you think too many steps ahead, you experience failure in advance, you talk yourself out of it, you end up playing these mental gymnastics in your head. Oh, everyone's watching, I should wait for a better moment, she's too attractive, she's not attractive enough, I'm not in the right state right now, I think she might be a man. And then she disappears into the crowd, never even knowing you existed. But the reason why this is happening is it's your mind's attempt to keep you safe. Anxiety is not an illness. Anxiety is an emotion. And the reason we feel this emotion is because of this prehistoric defense mechanism. So now that we understand why we fear failure, I think that's another important point as well, because what I've learned with all the guys who I've worked with and doing my own personal renaissance process, because when I started Daytime Approach in 2020, I was a low-life loser. I looked like a turnip, I dressed like a moron, I had erectile dysfunction, I was addicted to porn. The reason why I had sexual dysfunction was because I always had this fear of the feminine. So I grew up as an only child in the north of England, in the Lake District. My parents got divorced when I was 5 years old, and for a big portion of my life, it was just me and my mum. But because my mum has got a lot of mental health problems, I learned from a young age, if I said the wrong thing at the wrong time with the wrong intonation, I would inflict the wrath of my mum. So for me, the home was never a safe place. Whenever I was around women, I never felt safe, right? And I think a lot of us, we grow up this way where so much of our childhood shapes who we become in the future. And then we start to develop this defense mechanism because the adult is developed to protect the child, right? The adult we become is designed to protect the child that we once were. But what I realized over the years is the reason we fear failure is because we judge others who fail. Yeah? The reason we fear failure is because we judge others who fail. Have you ever seen a guy approach a woman in front of you? Maybe it was at a bar, at a nightclub, and maybe you judged him. Maybe you gained some secondhand embarrassment. Maybe you watched him walk over confidently. Maybe he got rejected. Maybe a part of you, that Schadenfreude inside of you, enjoyed it. But a part of you would have been judgmental, right? So the reason we fear failure is because we judge others who fail. I've always found that to be interesting. But now we understand why we feel these feelings. A lot of people, when I was first learning Daytime Approach in 2020, and I was shit scared, I had nothing going for me, I didn't like myself as a human being, I was struggling on confidence, etc. A lot of people, a lot of the content that I was watching, it said, cold approach is a numbers game. And you might have heard this. You might have heard that cold approach is a numbers game. The more you open, the more you close. And what I now found to be true is this is bullshit. Cold approach is not a numbers game. Cold approach is a clarity game. And this is the whole game right here. Because through my lens, my entire thesis on dating, anti-game artistry, is a two middle finger salute to this entire dating industry. Wherever you look online, you'll see guys who are telling you success with women is what is all to do with what you add. You need to add more lines, add more muscle, add more fake confidence. That's how you become more attractive. But for me, this misses the only question that actually matters. Attractive to who? Because the entire point with the dating game is not to be everything to every woman. It's to be the right somebody for the right somebody. So daytime approach is not a numbers game. It's a clarity game. When you're going out there to approach, you are filtering for your fuck yeses. Yeah? You're looking for the women who light up as soon as you approach them. You're looking for the women who like you for the man who you are, not for the man who you're presenting. And this is why old school game advice is flawed. Old school game advice focused on the 10-minute sales pitch. It forced men to present the idea of themselves to a woman rather than the actual them. It was focused on getting women rather than keeping women, because at some point the mask is going to slip. At some point she's going to realize she fell for the idea of you rather than the actual you. And old school game was simply ego protection. Guys were terrified of presenting themselves as they were because they were told somewhere along the line who they were was not enough. So they have to put on an act, they have to put on this fake bravado, learn these canned lines, learn these canned routines. My entire approach to dating, and the reason why I get the results that I do, is because I understand this game is about attraction through subtraction. It's not about what you add, it's about what you remove. In the same way that when Michelangelo was asked how he sculpted the statue of David, he responded, I removed everything that wasn't David. And this is why repulsion is magnetic. When you're going out there and filtering for your fuck yeses, you're showing up as you are rather than as you think you need to be, your women will show up. The wrong women will get repelled. And this is why I don't believe in the one. I believe in soulmates. I believe that there are women and people who've been put on this earth specifically for us, and it's our job as men to filter for these women. And this is how you get the results you know you're capable of in the dating game, because you start to view rejection not as evidence that you're not worthy. Rejection is simply the filter doing its job. Yeah? Rejection is the filter doing its job. For example, when I make content online, there is a big portion of people who hate me, right? For whatever reason, I trigger them. But I don't dilute my image. I don't dilute my edges. I don't try and soften the way that I speak. Because by me showing up as my most authentic self, what happens is the guys who really fuck with me, they get attracted. They're like, yeah, I love what Christian does. I love his freedom from bullshit approach to life. I do feel like a closet heterosexual. When he says that, I get triggered by it because I know it's true. Yeah, it's like the best jokes contain element of truth. That's why they're funny. So when I put content, when I penetrate the world with my truth, the right people, the right clients show up. In fact, my best clients now, they don't even need to schedule an application call with me. They've consumed so much of my content, they feel as though they know me as a person. They've built this parasocial relationship. Now, they just DM me on Instagram. They're like, Christian, I've watched your content. I know you're legit. I've looked at Christian Casanova testimonials on YouTube. I know you're the guy. I really fuck with your life philosophy. Just send me the payment link, bro. Let's get started. I want to just take this to the moon. And this is why dating, business, social dynamics, they're all related, yeah? And this is what I'm trying to get across to you in all of my content. You're not trying to be everything to everybody. You are filtering for your fuck yeses. You're penetrating the world with your truth. So let's say you go out today and 7 women decline your invitation. And this is the way we need to start framing rejection, because the terminology becomes too severe. Plato said it best. He said, people who tell stories rule the world. It's the stories we tell ourselves that dictate the reality that we live, because all we are is repeated patterns of thoughts and behavior that we've accepted over time as our identity. we then crystallize this identity through the language that we use. So we say things to ourselves like, I suck with women. I can't get women because I'm an introvert. I'm not attractive because I'm bald, I'm short. Insert limiting belief. None of these things are true. It's simply you make it true by believing in it. Perception is very much reality. So something that I observe in my clients when we first start working together as part of my one-on-one online mentorship is I audit the language that they're using. So one of my guys might go out and let's say he gets quote unquote rejected 7 times in a row. He'll message me and I'll say, fuck Christian, I went out today. I had 7 harsh blowouts. I got rejected 7 times. And I'll listen back to his conversations. I'm like, bro, she literally just said, I have a boyfriend. She literally said, you made her day. She said, thank you for doing this. Keep doing it. I respect it. These are not rejections. One of my clients said it best. When you're approaching a woman, you don't have this QR code on your head that she's scanning and she knows everything about you. All she sees is who's in front of her in this moment, and we don't know what's going on in their lives. You might have approached her, maybe it was just a bad time of the month, maybe her gerbil just died, maybe for whatever reason she was feeling stressed and frustrated and she just wasn't available in that moment for a conversation, or maybe she just wasn't one of your women. But what we need to start doing is stop using the language that is amplifying the negative emotions we don't want to feel. So the only thing that you need to say to yourself when you're going out to approach women is you are going out, you're filtering for your fuck yeses, and you are simply extending invitations. For example, imagine you wanted to host a party, and imagine you invited 100 people to the party. Now imagine 33 people showed up and the rest didn't. Well, you'd have a great party with the people who did show up because you know the people who were there really wanted to be there. And this is why it's not a numbers game, it's a clarity game. You're extending invitations, your fuck yeses will say yes. And the wrong people, they won't show up. In the same way, when I'm making content, I'm polarizing the world. The right guys come forward, the wrong guys get repelled. Anti-game artistry, it's not this dating gimmick, it's an entire thesis on how to properly live your life. Because I think when you are going through this process of mastering the decentralized skill set of the awake 1%, which is daytime cold approach, you quickly realize this is not a process of learning anything new. It's a process of unlearning. It's a process of stripping away the mask, the fear, the compliance, the sedation. Everything you believe to be true about yourself is a concoction. It's not real. It's an illusion. And this is why what I love the most about daytime approach is every approach that you do is an opportunity to recreate yourself. Because within all of us, there is this conflict of identity. There is a version of ourselves who we've always been. There's a version of ourselves who we think we should be. And there's a version of ourselves who we want to be. And you'll know deep down that you are capable of living a life of greatness. You know you're capable right now of doing more, of being more than you currently are. You probably feel as though right now you're trying to do so many things. You're trying to heal trauma. You're trying to manage your finances. You're trying to find love, be confident, master cold approach, not fall behind, not end up like your parents. And with all of the personal renaissance activities that I've done in my life, being a magician for a decade, doing solo skydives, solo traveling to over 30 countries, martial arts, being a lifeguard in the USA, nothing has impacted my life more than daytime approach. Because through daytime approach, I finally allowed myself to be the version of myself who I always knew was there. I just didn't have the evidence to back it up. Because when you approach a woman and you are free from bullshit, you are radiating godly frequency, which is the removal of doubt, the removal of everything that isn't you. This woman who you approach, she connects with you, not with your conditioning, but with the real you. And every approach that you do from this state of godly frequency, this allows you to reinvent your self-image. It allows you to rewire your entire internal belief system. And this is what it was for me. Evidence has got the loudest voice. If you go and watch the oldest videos on my main channel, I started off with nothing. I started off as a low-life loser with erectile dysfunction who no woman wanted. I would go on dates with women who I met through Daytime Approach. I would get them back to my place. My dick didn't work. And 2 hours later, they blocked me on WhatsApp. Yeah? And I'm in a position now where I truly believe nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. I think that rejection is God's protection. I think all of the inevitable vicissitudes we experience in life is God operating in disguise. But in plain fucking English, stop saying you got rejected. Stop saying you got a harsh blowout. For me, true rejection is if you're in a relationship with a woman for 2 years, right? So this is my position right now, for those of you who don't know. I've been in a long-term relationship with my current girlfriend, capital G girlfriend, for 2 years now. And it's the best relationship I've ever been in. The reason why is because the first time in my life, this is the relationship I know I can replace, because I'm now in an abundant mindset. Abundance is not always having, it's knowing you can have. Before this relationship, I lost myself in relationships because I was scared of losing the relationship. I was needy, I was too available. I would throw these temper tantrums whenever I didn't get my own way, because a lot of my early relationships were me attempting to close open loops that remained unresolved with my mum. I always tried to find salvation in the feminine. I was operating from a place of lack rather than from a place of wholeness. But now, through Daytime Approach, I've been able to become the most abundant version of myself. I understand that I have acquired a 0.01% skill set that allows me to no longer feel needy. Because if this relationship that I'm currently in, let's say it turns to dust, right? Let's say tomorrow, for whatever reason, we break up. Yes, I will be sad. I will most likely cry. I will mourn the death of a beautiful relationship. But just because a relationship ends does not mean it failed. And what I will do is I will go back to understanding who I am at my core. I have this skill of being able to create cosmic connections with wife-worthy women. And I will then exercise the skill to filter for more of my soulmates. But the reason why I'm explaining this story to you is because when you're learning Daytime Approach, everything feels overwhelming. You have this fear of not receiving love from the feminine. You feel as though you're a closet heterosexual. You feel as though you're doing something wrong. You're carrying shame. You might feel guilt. You might be regretting the past, dreading the future. But through Daytime Approach, you will find that you begin to unlearn so much of the bullshit, so much of the closet heterosexuality. You'll recognize the propaganda for what it is. Oh, bro, approaching women, stranger danger, harassment. No, all this is fear disguised as nobility. Yeah, that's all that this is. The guys who say, oh, approaching women, you can't do that because it's creepy. What is creepy is approaching women in nightclubs at 1:30 a.m. when they're too drunk to even think straight. What is creepy is walking out into your city centre, checking out women, giving them side-eye glances, waiting for them to walk past you, looking at their asses, doing nothing about it. Daytime Approach is a gentleman's way of meeting women. And all this is talking to people. All this is creating conversations with women who you don't know with the intention of beginning a romantic relationship. Yeah. So when I was learning the skill of Daytime Approach in 2020 and everything felt scary, everything felt overwhelming for me, another lesser known mindset that I installed was I viewed myself back then as a work in progress. I still do. But the mindset that always kept me steady was I would say to myself, because when I was learning Daytime Approach, all I had was delusional optimism and irrational confidence. Yeah, I had optimism in the absence of certainty, which is how I define confidence. Optimism in the absence of certainty. And part of the reason why I create this content is to install that same optimism in the absence of certainty within you. But what I convinced myself of in 2020 was the version of me who's being rejected on the streets of Leeds right now is not going to be the version of me who is getting rejected 2 years from now. And this future projection mindset kept me steady. And this is what I would say to you as well. If you feel as though you're viewing every approach right now as a make or break situation, you're worried about not receiving love from the feminine, you're worried about losing value in the eyes of a woman, first of all, recognize everything is forgettable. In 100 years' time, none of this is going to matter. I call it liberated nihilism. I got this because I graduated in English literature at the University of Liverpool, and one of my favorite Shakespearean plays is Macbeth. And in Macbeth, Act 5, Scene 3, there is this beautiful passage of prose which reads, "Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." And I've always loved that so much. We get an hour upon this stage. The reason we fear failure is because we judge others who fail, but you quickly recognize nobody gives a flying fuck. Your existence on this planet is often exaggerated. You see a guy who's driving a Lamborghini, he's worked his bollocks off to buy that Lamborghini thinking everybody's going to be looking at him, everybody's going to be thinking, oh wow, he's that guy. Most people see the guy who's driving the Lamborghini and they imagine themselves in the Lamborghini. The world's motivated by self-interest. We all think about ourselves more than anybody else. But the mindset that kept me steady was recognizing the version of me who's being rejected, quote unquote, right now is not going to be the version of me who's getting rejected 2 years from now. It almost felt as though I was shedding spiritual skin. It felt as though daytime approach was this rite of passage. It was the ultimate mode of self-development, the most aggressive form of self-development. It's true personal renaissance mission. And that was the mindset that kept me steady. And that's what I say to you right now. I say to all my guys, the first 100 approaches that you do, they're just batting practice. They're just to get skin in the game. They're just to get points on the board. Get these first 100 daytime approaches done as fast as possible, because through these approaches, you're going to start to discover your own approach to approaching. You're going to learn how to overcome that initial resistance, how to handle objections, how to properly approach a woman, how to carry a conversation, how to get contact details, maybe even set up some dates. The caveat that I would give to all of this advice is, if you're somebody right now and you're in a position like a lot of my clients where you're not a beginner to daytime approach anymore, let's say you've done over 100 approaches, right? But let's say the results you're getting don't match the effort that you're putting in. Maybe right now you've done close to 200 daytime approaches, but all it seems to be is the majority of women who are telling you, I have a boyfriend, flaky phone numbers, conversations that don't go anywhere. Because this is the position that so many of my clients are in. I've explained the story in the past where one of my clients who I worked with at the start of this year, Ethan, before we started working together, Ethan was in a fucked up position because he'd done over 250 daytime approaches, but he'd only been on 2 dates. And these were not even women who he wanted. These were just women who happened not to flake on him. And then within 6 weeks of us working together, Ethan had been on 6 dates with 6 different women. So every single week he was going on a date with a new woman. So this is why at some point you recognize it's not about action. It's about taking conscious action. Naval Ravikant said it best. You've probably heard somebody say along the lines, to achieve mastery in any field, it takes 10,000 hours. Well, Naval iterated on this assumption when he said it's not about 10,000 hours, it's about 10,000 iterations. Because what's happening with a lot of guys is they're practicing failure and they're calling it progress. It's kind of like going to the gym and practicing bad form. So sure, everybody is going to have undesirable outcomes. Everybody needs to go through this process of ego death in order to achieve social enlightenment. Everybody is going to extend invitations and have those invitations declined. Everybody's playing this clarity game and filtering for their fuck yeses. But if all you know right now are undesirable outcomes, if you are putting reps in, you are showing up, you are being disciplined, you're approaching every single weekend, but the results seem to be lagging behind your effort, then what I've done is I put together another video. It's just appeared on screen now. And that video goes balls deep on why 97% of guys don't get the results they deserve with daytime approach.